Live at Game On Wisconsin, this is MJ Hurley, Mike Kwanu with the post route right now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the post route at Game On Wisconsin. My name is MJ Hurley. I'm joined here today by Mike Kwanu. Mike, how are you feeling after the Packers' 27-17 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Just glad to be 3-1. Not as clean of a win as you'd like, but we'll take two score wins anytime we can in the NFL, and hopefully the team will be able to just clean up some of the rough edges they had today. But yeah, those will be things that can get looked in later on in this post game recap. But yeah, overall, just happy to be out with the win. Happy to hear that. Well, not happy that Jair's hurt, but glad to hear it's not something definitive where he's like done for the year. It's something that he can hopefully work through. So we'll kind of have to track where he goes, where that injury takes us. It's going to kind of depend on the grade, but yep. Just glad to be 3-1 and on to the next one, basically.
So before we get going, once again, always want to thank our sponsors at Artec Ventures for taking care of us. The goal at Artec Ventures is to collaborate closely with founders throughout all the investment and fundraising stages, turning their visions into successful companies. Since 2020, Artec Ventures has helped turn great ideas into profitable businesses that make an impact on industries, communities, and beyond. So, Mike, once again, a couple of questionable officiating calls. I don't want to spend too much time on it, so let's hit on that first before we get into some offensive and defensive recaps. No tripping call on TJ Watt. Way too much talk about TJ Watt this week, so I really wanted him to get a tripping call. And then a couple pass interference on Eric Stokes while Rashawn Gary had a choke hold on him. So, Mike, what has it been with NFL officiating so far? Why has it been so bad?
The easy, lazy answer is it's the quote-unquote human element. I'm honestly not sure what today was. Like you said, it's just a lot of inconsistency, and it's just maddening. It's maddening inconsistency, in all honesty, because like even some of those plays where like Stokes did get a clean pass breakup and stuff like that, you just hold your breath for that extra split second after the play's over, wondering, okay, like, where's it coming from? Because we all know there's a flag coming, and you can see it on the players' faces too. Like the primary defender will get up, signal incomplete, and then you'll see everybody else who's coming in like wait that split second to make sure they can celebrate the play and stuff. And yeah, it is so frustrating because like you'd love to be able to just celebrate a play because end of a drive, scored on a touchdown kind of thing, or whatever it is. And it's just like, hold your breath for that split second and then, okay, good, we're good kind of thing. So yeah, I know it's just one of those where it's like, and then like every Badger Packer fan's favorite guy, TJ Watt, not only did he trip Rodgers, the first angle they showed, I actually thought Aaron kicked his own feet. So I actually said that in our Game On Wisconsin chat. I actually said that. But then when they showed the end zone angle, I was like, oh yeah, he definitely kicked his foot. Yeah. And then not only that, the reason he was in position to kick Rodgers' foot is because he stuck his hand in Billy Turner's face. So that's two. But I mean, and we won't really go into it. But honestly, like the blocked field goal and stuff like that, I kind of said it. I said it on Twitter. I was like, okay, like, because at least after the TJ Watt not trip, at least we were still able to go up 20-10. And I kind of said, okay, if that's the trade-off for not getting the blocked field goal correctly called, and not ruining Mason's his perfect streak right now, I'll take that I'll take the trip not being called a trip. I'll take that as karmic retribution in this moment in a game that the team did have under its own control, even though, like I said, it was the score won't reflect it, but the Packers got away with playing a sloppy game. And in all honesty, well, like I said, we'll get into later in the recap, but I was just glad that the penalties didn't, because in this kind of a game where you're facing a team that's an underdog but has the kind of defense that's given the Packers issues, strong front four with enough playmaking in the secondary. You can all look back to that Chargers game from a couple of years ago. That block field goal being incorrectly called offside, and any of those penalties, the tripping, the DPI on Stokes that wasn't when Rashawn was getting hogtied to the ground by the left tackle. Those are the kind of things where generally you see those sort of snowball this team when they're playing underdogs, and it was just good to see that they did enough today to get the win. So it's one of those that you're kind of like, okay, we'll take it today, but you kind of like think to yourself, okay, like these better be adding up to give us some sort of good juju, good karma come later in the season when it really matters, kind of thing. So rather take those lumps now and kind of just be upset with some wins that are closer than they should be. But it's like you said, I don't have an explanation for it. I still say that, and refs do look younger. My biggest complaint before was I was like, you're letting refereeing in the NFL be AARP for secondary AARP jobs for AARP collectors. But that's the thing too, is the refs are getting younger, and they still, because before you could say like, oh, he couldn't see it because that dude looks old, but
right
now they're getting younger too, and they still don't get in the right position, don't see it and stuff. So it's I don't have a be-all explanation for all of that, but like I said, it's a good thing that the team was able to scrape enough together to get the win and not have it affect the outcome. So we'll take it, and we'll just kind of roll on to next week in that regard.
And honestly, the two biggest positives I had, because I agree in general, Mike, it was a sloppy game, but the two positives I kind of have in response to that is, number one, once they went up 27-10, the Packers really coasted for that entire fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They put in A.J. Dillon. They just ran the ball down the Steelers' throat, and they really didn't try for the most part. Rodgers did have some more missed deep balls, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Really is a concern when we need to win football games with those deep throws. We'll get to that a little bit later. But also, given the injuries that the Green Bay Packers have, Elton Jenkins out, David Bakhtiari is still out, Zadarius Smith and Kevin King out, even though I want Eric Stokes on the field more than Kevin King. We don't need to talk about that more. But given all of the injuries that the Packers have on both sides of the ball, a lot of rookies playing, a lot of inexperienced people, especially on the front five for the offensive line, I was still happy with how they performed. I really like the scheme Matt LaFleur has come up with, blocking star edge rushers like TJ Watt. Even if he tripped Aaron Rodgers, even if he did get some pressure at some points, roughing the passer call at one point. So he got his hits on Aaron Rodgers, but it didn't affect the Packers' game plan enough that it was ever really a concern. So given the fact that the Packers are nowhere near full strength, a very good defense, like you mentioned, the type of defense that gives Green Bay trouble, I will take a 27-point victory, and I will run with it. Packers did exactly what they were supposed to do. May have not been the prettiest win, but you got a Mike Tomlin coach team coming to Green Bay early in the season. I'm happy to get out with a victory.
Yeah, I said that early in the game when Pittsburgh scored its first touchdown, and I was like, this, Tomlin teams, he's never finished with a losing record before. It will be amazing if he manages to keep that streak going this year. But there's always a game every year where they punch well above their weight class and they win a game that they're like, oh, like how'd they do that? So I really thought, and honestly, if Ben was even a league average quarterback at this point, this thing is a back and forth. This thing is probably getting pushed to 35-31 kind of territory in terms of the scoring and stuff like that. So, but like you said, the two biggest positives that I have for this game is that O-line, despite all the questions up front, losing two bona fide first-team All-Pro players to injury, they have answered the bell against two very talented front sevens. They've come together as a unit, and because they've come together as a unit, the run game is also we saw the run game start to come to life a little bit more today. It hasn't been bad necessarily the first few weeks, but you didn't see some of those bigger runs. And today we finally got to see them break off some bigger runs, especially like you said, at even before when they were still up just 20-10. Pittsburgh kind of knew that Green Bay was in that sort of start to shorten the game mode and stuff like that. And we still saw Dylan pop that 20 whatever yard run to get down to the 1 yard line and get his touchdown vultured away. But it was good to see them perform. And even that drive that ended on the 4th down where, and we saw probably two of the most unbelievable things for Aaron Rodgers throws where he hit John Runyon Jr. in the back of the head on the 3rd down throw. Yeah. And then the next play, Randall Cobb got a little bit too excited for another reception, so he tried to tip a pass for Tay. But even then on that drive, that was where I was frustrated with it because they gained 5, 4, 6, 5 yards or whatever it was on their first 4 runs on that drive, and Pittsburgh knew they were running the whole way. And they were still able to snap those kind of decisive runs off. So that was definitely, those are the two biggest positives I have from this game. And, it's like I said last week, I was kind of concerned that Ben would find a turn back the clock game. Thankfully, he didn't, even though his receivers were trying their darndest to make it happen for him. But the team, like I said, it did enough. But there were, as much as it was, it wasn't the cleanest win, and there are some disappointing details to this one. There was that offensive line gelling and coming together. That is a big positive for this unit coming forward, especially the youth on the interior of that O-line. And Billy Turner continues to be very rock solid on that right side from the right tackle position.
Well, to your point, Mike, the depth now that this offensive line has, assuming by the end of the year we have our healthy offensive line, which my guess would be Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Myers, Newman, and then Turner. I guess that could change. My guess is that's what it would look like. But even then, the issue the Chiefs had in the Super Bowl last year was they had injuries throughout the playoffs, and by the time they got to the Super Bowl, they had no offensive linemen. The Packers, whenever Jenkins and Bakhtiari are back, not only do they have the luxury to let those guys rest as much as they need. If we didn't have the confidence, if Matt LaFleur didn't have the confidence in Yosh, Jenkins would probably be out there right now.
Oh, definitely.
But, and like you said last week, if the Packers didn't have one of the most conservative training staffs in the NFL, Jenkins would probably be out there. But not only do we have that type of coaching staff and team, we have that type of depth that we can rest our stars. We can make sure that they come back fully healthy, fully rested, 100%, because we are pushing for Super Bowl run or bust. So that's what's the most encouraging to me is we have the depth across the board. We have Eric Stokes, who he's going to have some rough moments, but if Jair is out for a couple weeks, I think given the schedule we're facing in the next few weeks, he can handle his own, because even Jair got burned today. So nobody, even our stars, obviously they're not perfect. We have guys behind them who can come in and make sure we do the best that we can until we're at 100% across the board.
Exactly. And just like you said, kudos to this front office. Like I said, I banged the drum for the Yost train, but in my wildest dreams, when I would jokingly say it last year and pretty seriously say he should start this year in certain situations, in my wildest imaginations, I did not think he would come off back-to-back weeks, filling in as an emergency starter, as our third left tackle, and have the kind of games that he put together last week and this week. And today's game, I tweeted about it a little bit. Today's game was especially impressive for him because the kind of rushers Pittsburgh has, especially with the weather, they're power rushers. So like Melvin Ingram, his career, he's a power player.
Yeah.
And it's hard to chip block for guys like that because you chip block on speed rushers because you're basically nudging that edge rusher so that your offensive tackle gets you want that chip blocker to basically hit that edge rusher into your offensive tackle so your offensive tackle is head up. With power rushers, they're rushing your offensive tackle head on and then they're trying to win to a side. So if you chip block that guy, you're almost giving him a side and you're almost creating a disadvantage for your tackle. So even more so, it was harder to help him against a guy like Ingram. And he had a couple plays where, he got beat inside a couple times and stuff. But for the most part, especially for a guy who's 6'7", I saw him reset his feet get good anchor underneath of him and settle down and really stop the bull rush of these Pittsburgh Steelers rushers. And then in the run game, he had some incredible, like I said, same thing. He's not going to win leverage battles at 6'7", and he's not a huge guy at 6'7" either. He's a pretty athletic 6'7" guy.
Yeah.
I think they list him at 320 or whatever, but he's not some like the guy Marcus Cannon the Patriots had, who was like 6'5", 350. He's not anyone like that. So
no.
I think I was on Dylan's long run. He planted the Steelers 5 technique. He got on him and he pushed him back and put him into the turf on that run, which is just impressive for such a tall guy to get under a defender's pads like that. So those are the kind of blocks that you're going to need to create big gains in the run game. And the receivers blocked really well today too. I mean, they had a play where Amari Rodgers came across on jet motion, and he was the lead blocker for an outside run. And it's those kind of things that are going to just open up this offense, not just in the run game itself, but you get receivers who are blocking their butts off. It's going to make DBs think twice about, whether it is a run or if it's a pass. And those are the kind of hesitations that buy offenses that split second of extra space on a downfield pass play. Like I said, the biggest positives coming out of this game are that O-line, our O-line, and that run game coming together. And like you said, depth. For the most part, depth is the big equalizer because and we heard on different, I think Peter Bukowski had Mike Wall on, and Mike Wall basically said, like, it's a world of hurt going from your first string to your second string. And to have not a second stringer, but a third string left tackle who, frankly, saying it, I think the rest of our division wishes they had. Well, okay, except for the Lions. The Lions have a guy they're paying to be their franchise left tackle and a guy who is a generational left tackle in Penei Sewell. But you can't tell me that the Vikings playing the Browns today and the Bears with just whatever you want to call their offensive line didn't wish that they had our offensive line. They would trade I don't know what to get a player of Nyman's capability. So that's just scouting and coaching working hand in hand on that to, like you said, part of it is game planning and all that kind of stuff. But LaFleur can put in his game plan and not think twice about it because he's like, okay, now, especially now that we've seen it, it's all good in theory, but now we've seen it that, okay, we can put Yosh out at left tackle. We're going to give him some help here and there with the run game, with chips and stuff like that. But he's got it. He's got his stuff together, and he's going to give us a hard edge on the left side to create protection, give us that clean pocket for Rodgers. So that's a luxury. It's an extreme luxury that's a necessity right now. But once we start to get Jenkins back, once we get Bakhtiari back, that's a supreme luxury. And it creates, I've talked about it with like Paul Brettel and a bunch of other guys online. The fact that we can have conversations about who is the best 5, like you mentioned, like
right.
the lineup you gave. My question is Newman the best option at right guard, or is moving John Runyon over? Or if we want to get really weird, has Nyman played so well that you think of putting him at right tackle
and
bumping
put Turner
into
right guard? Yeah.
But the one reason I think they'll probably stick with Newman is continuity, especially because Myers is a rookie. Even though you'd be hypothetically putting better players around him, you do want to maintain some sort of continuity around him, even if it is another rookie next to him. There's something even old linemen can't explain it in the best of words, but there is something to continuity on the O-line that just can't be explained by statistics. It is what it is kind of thing. So I totally understand if they decide, even if it's for like the first week, Jenkins is back at guard and Bakhtiari is back at tackle, if they leave that right side for the first week or two, and then maybe after the bye or something, you see them shuffle the line again where they'll have more time to get their feet under themselves and stuff like that. But the fact that we can have these conversations is honestly astounding for any NFL team, because if you tell any NFL team that, oh yeah, you're going to be 3-1, but by the way, those last 2 games, you're going to be starting your third string left tackle, 2 rookies on the interior at center and right guard. Oh, and a guy with, like Jacob said last week, with less than 200 snaps under his belt at left guard. and you're going to get to 3-1 against two of the better defenses in the league.
I wouldn't
any team is going and they're buying lottery tickets at that point,
Yeah.
because that's just unbelievable to even think that's possible in the NFL.
Yeah, and honestly, speaking of depth, the fact that Aaron Rodgers, and I ripped on him for this at the beginning of the season, holding the Packers hostage, convincing the Packers for some reason to bring back Randall Cobb. But goodness, the trip down memory lane that was Randall Cobb today. And the question I had for Alex Strofe on the pregame show was, who steps up with MVS out today?
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is always going to get the majority of the attention. He had a quiet, 6 or 7 catch night today. So to me, the question was, is it Lazard? Is it Tunyon? It could have been Tunyon if Rodgers hit on a couple throws. But the ability that we have to just say, hey, by the way, we have Randall Cobb just chilling here. He's still really good. He's still got the wheels, as he said in his post-game press conference. Aaron Rodgers threw a little shade at him for that. So, we just have Randall Cobb chilling in the wings, waiting for his moment. I mean, you have legitimately 5 playable, startable wide receivers that would probably start on most NFL teams. That is rare. You have 7 startable offensive linemen at least. So the depth that the Packers have surrounded Aaron Rodgers with, I never want to hear again that the Green Bay Packers have not given Aaron Rodgers help, because he has 5 really good wide receivers, one of the best tight ends in the NFL last year, and an offensive line that can throw literally 17 different combinations to protect him in whatever way, shape, and form, and the best run blocking tight end in the NFL. The man has plenty of help. He will be perfectly fine. Will he be here next year? Who knows? But if he wins me a Super Bowl, I don't really care.
Yeah. And Green Bay's own Andrew Brandt, he tweeted it during the game. He said, he's the guy who was here when we signed Aaron to his first contract, signed him to the extension and stuff.
Yep.
And he said, even after all the offseason headaches, would you rather be the record aside, that's not even the point he's making, but would you rather be in the Packers position where you're dealing with feelings and personnel, human resources kind of thing, or would you rather be the Steelers where it's like crap? And I saw a couple of guys who are Pittsburgh area sports writers and stuff like that, and I totally understand where they're coming from, because what they're going through is kind of like Favre in 2005, where he had that season where he had 20 touchdowns and 30 interceptions kind of thing and stuff, where it's this is a guy who's brought you, your fans, your team so much joy over, the decade and a half he's been playing, but he looks terrible kind of thing. And at least, in 2005, you're kind of okay, the team around Favre just sucks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, if Ben was a league average quarterback, we're probably talking about Green Bay holding on to a less than a touchdown win, the over on this game being blown by in the third quarter. But because as nice as that interception by Stokes was, as nice coverage as he had on a few other plays, he got toasted early in the game and would have. I don't know how far Smith-Schuster would have run if that throw was even half on target. Same when Smith-Schuster burned Sullivan he had a touchdown on a post if that throw was 2 yards lower than it was. But I know the fact that Pittsburgh is in that weird position of, well, we know Mason Rudolph also sucks. Is he better than Ben is right now? And the fact that that's a coin flip is the fact that is the conversation of, is what we know Mason Rudolph is better than what Ben is right now. The fact that that's the state of their quarterback situation tells you everything you need to know about why Green Bay made the decision it did. It ruffles a lot of fans' feathers, and Jacob and I we've joked about it all the way along this whole last year and a half, but we're a lot of fans, even some of the guys with Game On, they're in that age where we were at their age when Favre Rodgers happened in 2008. And so that's why our attitude has been we've been through this before. We know what's gonna be the end result. I know some people are still kind of jokingly saying maybe they'll rethink if it's Rodgers being traded. I still think it is. We'll get into that a little bit with the deep pass accuracy and stuff like that. But the fact that they can even have those conversations one way or another just speaks to the foresight. And like a lot of guys have said, people can say they hate Groot, Groot should be fired, whatever. Like, he goes into that pick knowing that his reputation is on the line, and he's making that pick. And in a sense, like, it's almost a braver decision than what Thompson did drafting Rodgers, because Thompson had the excuse of being like, it's my first year, I'm reshaping this team into my image, gonna get a new coach next year anyway, kind of thing, and yada yada yada. Groot is in a situation where they've been to the NFC Championship. Well, at the time of the Love pick, they'd been to the NFC Championship game. The team looked relatively solid coming back for next year, and he still makes that pick and stuff. So, in a sense, I think it's even the stones are bigger there to make that pick in that situation, whereas like Thompson did it, they were tearing down the team and stuff like that, getting the team younger and stuff. But I'd rather be in this situation. And like I said, throw the records out. If we're just looking at two teams coming into the season, because I've seen it a bunch on like just fans of the Packers, fans of the Steelers, fans of just other teams where it's like, what did the Steelers really think was going to happen coming into this year kind of thing. So, I mean, it's like I said, it's one of those, I'd rather be on this side of the pond looking at it with, some people just got to get massaged a little more than, like, crap. Like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation, but no matter what, something Alex said on the pre-snap today was, hey, if all Randall Cobb does this year is keep Aaron Rodgers in town for the rest of 2021, then I'm happy about that. So as long as A-Rod's in town, the Packers are a contending team. I don't want to go too long because people have a game of the century to go watch at 7:25 when Tom Brady returns to Foxborough. Particularly, I don't care. I'm not even really going to watch it for the most part. But Mike, next week, Green Bay has Cincinnati, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So give me your predictions for that game against Cincinnati. They are 3-1. Granted, some different opponents, but the Packers have faced some questionable opponents as well. So 3-1 nonetheless. What are you looking at next week? What are your most important previews for the game against Cincinnati?
Well, obviously the big one is going to be how healthy is Jair. That's going to be a big one because Cincinnati does have a relatively good and talented wide receiver core. Jamar Chase, despite all his preseason struggles, that comment where he was like, I like the white line on the football. It helps me see it better. He has come in. He has played very well so far. Tyler Boyd is a problem out of the slot. He is going to give this Packers defense trouble. We'll see if they're missing a couple weapons or two on offense. I know that T. Higgins has been out with an injury the last couple weeks. That's something to kind of monitor for them. Helps them that they have the mini bye coming off their Thursday night game against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But the key for them is Joe Burrow just looks he's playing with so much more confidence than he was last year. Their O-line is playing better. I still don't think it's that good, but we'll see what Kenny Clark, Rashawn. I gotta give my boy Rashawn a shout out. I still need to see more power out of his game. And honestly, that sack he had tonight is the reason why I need to see him just truck it into fifth gear and just run through every offensive tackle. Because no matter what stage of his career Ben is at, he yanked a 6'5", 240-pound man while reaching around over whatever he did, a 300-pound man, to yank Ben down on top of himself. So I just need to see more of that. Doesn't need to be cute. His game does not need to be cute at all. He just needs to exhibit force, power, use the God-given athleticism and strength that he has to just run through mother effers and get to the quarterback at will. Preston played a solid game, but once again, depth. That magic word you said. He went out early in this game, and it was kind of like, crap, it's going to be Rashawn and Garvin, who's had some good, decent plays here and there, and then Chauncey Rivers. So we'll see what they do in terms of shoring that up, especially with the Za'Darius news. But they've got to be able to test this Cincinnati O-line because Burrow plays similar to Roethlisberger in the sense that they're trying to get the ball out quickly, and the thing is that Burrow is a lot more accurate than Ben is at this point in time. So, especially if Jair can't go next week, like I said, we'll track that as the week goes on. But especially if Jair can't go next week, front is going to have to get more pressure. And I'd like to see tighter coverage. Once again, I'm not ready to rail on Barry this week or any of the DBs because it's always hard to tell, especially Stokes. This is his first NFL game dealing with weather, really. So he's trying to figure out how far off he's got, how much cushion he's got to give, how much he can rely on his athleticism, things like that. Like that play early in the game where he kind of slipped. You could tell, like, in his mind that the break, he was like, "Oh, I'm getting a pick six," and then he was like, "Oh, he's catching it," and then he slips and lets I think it was Deontay Johnson go around him. So those are the kind of things that I'm not going to harp on too much. And then even late in the game, I know it's frustrating to see everyone lined up 10 yards off and stuff, but you're playing the game situation. You're up 3 scores. You're just trying to get Pittsburgh to help you run the clock out. So it's hard to get a good read on how the coverage is going to look. But like I said, I'm waiting to see a cleaner weather game to get a real read because I thought Barry called a relatively aggressive game plan last week against San Fran. So I think this week is going to kind of kick off this run of better quarterbacks that we're going to be playing this year. So we'll get a real test of whether Barry's got these guys ready to go or if we're going to have more questions moving forward. But that's on the defense playing their offense, our offense against their defense. I think we're going to have some success next week. I really do. Cincinnati's pass rush. Okay, so they paid Trey Hendrickson, who was he was New Orleans' number 3 pass rusher last year. They paid him to be their number 1 pass rusher. I don't know what his stats look like, but I've watched some of their game film. He didn't really do much against this Steelers O-line, which to me tells a lot of what I need to know about that. Their best pass rusher might be Larry Ogunjobi. He's their 3 technique. He played with the Browns before, and now the Bengals signed him. So interior pressure tested. He's a pretty athletic, twitchy guy on the interior. So test for that young interior, especially Newman, who does struggle a little bit with twitched up guys. So that'll be one to watch. And then in the secondary, the big one for them is that Jesse Bates missed their game against Jacksonville with a neck injury. That's going to be one because he's their tone setter, their enforcer on the back end. So seeing whether he's going to play next week, that's going to be a big one for Cincinnati, what they do against our offense. What they did against Pittsburgh last week, I didn't get to watch their all 22 yet against Jacksonville, but they played a lot of cover 2 and they did a lot of late play clock coverage switches. So they would show cover 1 and drop into cover 2, or show cover 2, drop into cover 1. But it's going to kind of depend on which of their corners are up. They have old friend Trey Waynes, who Devontae beats like a drum on the perimeter.
Big fan of Trey Waynes.
So he's one of their corners. Eli Apple is another one of their corners, another friend of the Packers. So those are 2 of their top perimeter corners. They actually lost their best corner. William Jackson left in free agency. So, hey, if this O-line is going to continue to roll like it is, I've always said it, as much as we want the defense to be good, the defense is going to always be a complementary piece to this offense. This offense is going to be what's got to be the engine for this team if it's going to want to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. The defense is just going to be there to, we'd like to see it make some plays, make some key stops here and there kind of thing. But for the most part, it's going to be just trying to hold its water and rely on the offense to really protect it, to score enough points to protect it. And anything above that to me is gravy from this defense. So we'll see, like I said, we'll see as they start to hit some better quarterback play than they have the first month of the season. So that's going to be kind of the trend. But really, at this point, all I'm keeping an eye on is this team just tries to continue making incremental improvements. We're seeing that from the O-line, seeing it from Barry varying up his calls on defense, changing up his coverages, adding pressure, marrying the 2 together. That's promising. Just trying to see those incremental progress on both sides of the ball. And really, it's just a dash to get to the bye week with as good of a record as they can, as healthy as they can, and then try to see what little tweaks LaFleur can make to really just delve up the back end of his playbook. I think one thing to keep an eye on, we saw it with Lazard when he first got called up, but we saw, like I said earlier, we saw Amari Rogers get used on some jet sweeps, and he was like a lead blocker on a couple run plays. We've seen it with Lazard. We saw it with MVS, where when you start to show LaFleur that you're going to impact the game as a blocker, he's going to get you plays on offense. So, not saying it's anytime necessarily soon, but and even with the whole talk about like, is Tay getting too many targets? Is Jones getting too many touches? Honestly, the last 2 weeks, I haven't minded it at all, especially after that debacle of a week one. You had to get Devontae and Aaron Jones on track. I have no problem force feeding your two best playmakers on 2 primetime games, especially when you're trying to get the season back on track. I think you saw it a little bit today. You started to see some of the ancillary weapons. We saw Lazard with another kind of RPO-ish crosser route. Saw Tunyon get targeted several times, and then you saw Cobb get used again. So I think you're going to see, and then in the run game, you saw Dylan pick up a lot more of the load today, which was great to see. Want to keep Jones fresh, not only for the fourth quarter of an individual game, but you want to keep him fresh for end of the season. So I think you're going to start to see, Devontae might get more close to like 10 to 12 targets instead of like the 20 he got last week, but that's fine because you need him for that long season, postseason run and stuff like that. So I think we'll start to see the team kind of play the long game in that sense, start to distribute the ball around a little bit more. But I mean, for better or worse, Rodgers is going to look Devontae's way. Last week, he missed him in the red zone. This week, got it to him on that late third down conversion where they were trying to run the clock out. So, I mean, it's like I said, just even with this game, wasn't the prettiest game, but they did what they had to do to get a win. Wait to see what the news is on Jair, and we'll kind of go from there.
Like we said last week, Mike, really what we need to do is get out of week 7 at 6-1. If we get out of week 7 at 6-1, then we'll all be happy. Aaron Rodgers actually just said in his press conference that if he was going to be ecstatic with 2 wins coming out of the first 2 games without Bakhtiari and without Elton Jenkins for the majority of them. So coming out of there with 3, he's ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. Mike, 27-17 victory today for the Green Bay Packers over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Any last thoughts? Who was your MVP today, Mike?
I'm gonna say MVP O-line. I'm gonna go with the homer call, the easy one, but it's that O-line again. They really did. They allowed LaFleur to do whatever he wanted to do on offense, even though, like we said, we wish he just ran it more towards the end of the game. But still, to allow him to have the freedom to call what he wanted to call, you can't ask for anything more out of this O-line than what it's doing. And it's not even a smoke and mirrors thing. They took over the game, and Pittsburgh was ready to fold towards the end. So, in all honesty, you can't ask anything more out of this O-line group. And if that's what they're going to lean on to get to that 6-1 mark that we discussed last week, so be it. I'd love to see that.
I agree with this. Randall Cobb. I have to go with the even more homer pick. It warmed my soul to see that man catching touchdown passes from 12 again, something we have not seen in a long time. So even if it's a little bit forced, even if Rodgers had a couple people open it sometimes, even if Randall Cobb is jumping and deflecting passes that are intended for Davante Adams, which, by the way, Tony Romo made a great point on the broadcast. That really is just the fact that Rodgers and Adams and Cobb both know Rodgers so well. They both went to the same spot and sat down in the same part of the same zone because they know that's where Rodgers was looking. So, again, it does not hurt to have Randall Cobb in there mentoring Amari Rodgers, have another guy who, when MVS is out, you can just kind of change the dimensions of your offense and you're still going to succeed either way. So, very impressed offensively, doing everything they need to be doing for the most part. Defensively, we survived against a team we were supposed to survive against. So a game we were supposed to win on paper came out with a victory at the end of the day. That's all that matters. Wonderful. So, Mike, once again, thank you for coming on the post-game show. This has been the Post Route at Game On Wisconsin. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Once again, thank you to Artec Ventures for sponsoring the show. Follow us on all our social media. We have incredible shows throughout the week, including the MVS show on Tuesday. So even though you didn't see MVS on the field tonight, you will see him at Game On Wisconsin on Tuesday evening. So make sure to follow us on all our social medias. Watch out for that. Mike, once again, thank you for joining me. This has been the Post Route. We will see you next week.